stand in the ruins of ancient Alexandria, right? And you are walking through a story that may have been rewritten for over 2,000 years. A story of beauty, power, seduction, and political manipulation so intense that history itself might have been edited to erase the truth. But what if Cleopatra was never the woman we think she was? For centuries, the world has imagined Cleopatra as a legendary figure of irresistible charm, the woman who seduced Rome, the queen whose beauty shaped empires, the final ruler of ancient Egypt, who brought an entire civilization to its end. But here is the unsettling question historians still argue about today. How much of that story was written by her enemies? Because Cleopatra did not leave behind personal records that survived the centuries. What we know of her comes almost entirely from Roman writers, men who lived in an empire that defeated her, feared her influence, and needed her legacy to serve their politics. So the real Cleopatra may be buried beneath layers of propaganda, war stories, and dramatic exaggeration. And the truth may be far more powerful than the myth. In the heart of Alexandria, Cleopatra VII Philopator ruled one of the most sophisticated cities in the ancient world. Cleopatra VII Philopator was not Egyptian in ancestry, but Greek, descended from the Macedonian Ptolemaic dynasty that took control after Alexander the Great's empire collapsed. She was highly educated, fluent in multiple languages, and known to speak directly with diplomats without translators, a rare skill in the ancient world. Yet later, Roman accounts rarely focus on her intelligence. Instead, they focus on her beauty. But beauty alone does not explain how she maintained power in a kingdom constantly threatened by civil war, economic instability, and the rising dominance of Rome. Something doesn't add up, because surviving records suggest Cleopatra's real strength was not seduction, it was strategy. When Rome encountered Cleopatra, the Republic was already collapsing into empire. Power struggles between generals were tearing the world apart. And Cleopatra made a dangerous choice, aligning herself with Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony. To Rome, this was not just politics, it was betrayal. After her defeat, Roman propaganda began shaping her image into something controllable. A foreign queen who manipulated men, a symbol of excess, a warning against Eastern influence. The story was effective because it was simple. A powerful woman becomes dangerous. A dangerous woman becomes seductive. A seductive woman becomes villainous. But historians now question whether this image was carefully engineered to justify Rome's rise, because a politically intelligent queen is far more threatening than a seductive one. And Rome had every reason to make her seem less like a ruler and more like a cautionary tale. At its peak, Alexandria was not just a city, it was the intellectual center of the world. Massive libraries, scientific studies, engineering breakthroughs, and philosophical debates filled its halls. But most of that knowledge is gone, burned, lost, destroyed through centuries of conflict, which means Cleopatra's world survives only in fragments. Without her own voice preserved, history relies heavily on outsiders, especially Roman historians who had political motives. This creates a gap so large that modern researchers still debate, was Cleopatra truly the manipulative seductress described in Roman texts, or was she a highly educated, politically brilliant ruler who fought desperately to protect her kingdom from being absorbed by a superpower? Every new interpretation shifts her identity. Every missing scroll deepens the mystery, and every destroyed record raises the same question. Who gets to write history when the defeated cannot speak? Imagine Cleopatra not as a figure of romance or tragedy, but as a ruler navigating collapse, a queen watching her world shift under the weight of Rome's expansion, a strategist balancing diplomacy, survival, and war, a leader whose legacy was rewritten the moment she lost. In this version of history, Cleopatra is not defined by seduction. She is defined by resistance. Resistance against an empire that would eventually reshape the ancient world entirely. And when her story ends in legend, her death often dramatized as dramatic and romantic. It may have been less about spectacle and more about political erasure, because once she was gone, Rome no longer needed to fear her, only to define her. So what if everything we think we know about Cleopatra is not her story at all, but Rome's version of it. History is not just what happened. It is what survived. And in Cleopatra's case, survival may have belonged to her enemies. The truth may never be fully recovered, but the questions remain alive beneath the surface of time. And maybe that is what makes her story endure. Not the myth of beauty, but the mystery of power rewritten. If history can be reshaped like this once, what else are we still misunderstanding today? If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe for more cinematic journeys into lost history and comment below. What ancient story should we question next?